Hi, I'm Mariam, founder of VivaValet, and I'm doing a social media takeover for 5 Question Friday. I'm just got back from a media event, and I have found a spot under a window for natural lighting, as I've been advised. I'm super excited to do this with you. Thank you all for asking questions. This is really great to be able to share some insight that I have. Okay, first question. Wow, great question. So I can speak to what I use. I've tried apps in the past. I haven't found them terribly successful as a caregiver because in order to share them, sometimes either somebody else needs the app, or what's important to me in tracking for my husband, who's 93, might be different than what other people are tracking. So I have created a spreadsheet for myself just using Google Sheets. That way I can share them with my team and his doctors, and I can add different people to them. What I have found the most helpful for me is the medication that is prescribed first, and I prioritize it based on the most critical condition. So his heart conditions first, his blood thinners, his diabetes medication. Those are the things that I put on the top, so I can make sure that even when I'm reordering medication, that those don't get missed out. Then I follow up with different supplements and different doctors. The fields that I put are the doctor who prescribed the medication, when they started prescribing the medication, the dosage, the number of times per day, when to administer it, and any other indications that has he, had an impact from having this, when obviously any allergies. What I also do is once medications change, what I tend to do is I still leave the older medications down on the spreadsheet, and I say when he stopped taking them, because often he's been removed from medication and then a doctor will say, oh, we'll try this medication. I'll be like, well, we did for 2 years and then we were taken off by this doctor. I find that to be the most useful. I also keep track of his insulin and then also supplements that I give him, like Nature's Gold supplements or any sort of glucosamine or MSM. I keep those in the same list so the doctor's also aware of any supplement that he takes. Question and tip number 1 is ask them if they even want to go. If they do not genuinely want to take a trip that you think would be good for them, it's going to be a battle the entire time. So that's tip number 1, is genuinely make sure that this is a trip that your older adult wants to take. Secondly, I think it starts at home. So managing energy before a flight is really important. The same way that a flight impacts us much more at 47 than it did at 22, as you get older, it gets much, much harder. So for my husband, he's 93 now. So right now I know he needs 3 days of extreme rest and no visitors and no appointments before we travel. For a flight that is 14 hours or more. I think that's very important. Prior to that, I also take him to the doctor. I make sure before we take a long haul flight, and we travel perpetually, that I always go to see his cardiologist. I say, hey, this is where we're going. We want to go to Switzerland. He wants to go to the mountain. How high can he go? How high is the elevation that's safe? I ask these questions of a doctor. I make sure we get cleared from the doctor. And then I start planning the trip, right? Make sure I have all the medications. And on the flight itself, I make sure that he's hydrated. I make sure that it's a seat that is close to the washroom. I also make sure that I'm next to him. Now, if you fly economy class, great. I would put the person wherever they're most comfortable if they need leg room. If you're in business class, I suggest not sitting right next to them if it's an aisle and it's divided by a seat, but sitting across an aisle. That way it's really easy for you to get up and help them with different things that they need. At this stage, my husband needs help with putting the seatbelt on. He can't actually see all the buttons, so it makes it challenging if I have to run around the cabin to the other side. I make sure that I keep foods that I know that he can eat that are digestible for him with me, whether those are biscuits or fruit or things like that on the flight. I also make sure that he has comfortable clothing. He wears flight socks because he is a heart patient. So I make sure that he has flight socks. We don't travel unless he can elevate his feet. And I always let him know what is happening next. The day before we leave, I explain to him what's going to happen. We're taking this flight. This is how much we're resting. I always make sure that I ask him if he needs to use the washroom before we board a flight, during the flight, before we land. Always put him in a wheelchair. Not because he can't walk, but because it can be a very stressful rushing around situation in an airport or to get baggage. And it's much smoother, and you can travel with your older through the accessibility lane. So the flight's also easier for you. And most importantly, make sure you are getting rest. Make sure you are getting hydrated so you don't get burnt out in this flight also. Hope that's helpful. I do have a lot of travel tips because I travel a lot. So if you have more specific questions, please ask them. This is a double-edged sword. So obviously we want them online and engaging in technology that they know how to engage as confidently as possible. I think having the conversation with them to say, hey, you know, a lot of these companies, unfortunately, are very predatory. They make it very easy to slide into a free trial or free use, and then you roll over. I would have the conversation that says, if you're ever asked to put in your credit card, know that you're going to be rolling over into something that's paid. If anything is using your Google app or your Apple app account, it has the ability when you sign up for a free trial to roll over into the subscription. So maybe you set up a monthly check-in to say, hey mom, hey dad, do you want me to take a look at your subscriptions to see if these are ones that you're still using or you intended to use? I go through and clean with my husband once every 2 to 3 months. And I say, hey, do you still know you're paying for this? If it's a year-long subscription, I will cancel it right away and let them know that you have it till the end of the year. And then I'll put in a Google reminder to ask them if this is still something that they use. So then we can do it again without it automatically rolling over. Best tip for diabetes tracking apps, the app the older person can use themselves the best. I find that is the Freestyle, the Libre Freestyle, and that actually has the attachment here, but the app is so well designed. It's colorful, it's big writing, it's big print, it's really easy to navigate, and their icon is bright yellow, so it's really easy to see amongst all the apps. That's my top tip for that. So, very common. I feel your pain. There's nothing worse than finding out an older has fallen or slipped and just wanting to protect them from that happening again. The first question I would ask is, where is he falling? Is he falling at the bedside on the way to the washroom? Is he falling in the bathroom itself? Is he falling on the way back? If you can assess those different areas, you can find out sometimes if it's at night and it's when he gets up, is it because he's lightheaded? Is it because he needs to stabilize for a moment? Maybe he needs something to hold on to. Maybe he needs automatic lights to turn on. If it's in the bathroom itself, I would check out the flooring, make sure there's grab handles. I'm just putting in for my husband, like a grab bar that kind of goes all the way from his bedside to the bathroom. Now, he does not use the washroom at night, and he doesn't because he had the shingles several years ago, and we started using a bedside urinal, which he doesn't have to use, but it creates for me so much peace as his wife. And so I begged him if he could just use this at night, then we feel safe at the bedside. And it's worked, and he actually prefers it because it's just so much easier for him to do at the bedside. But that withstanding, well-lit areas, grab bars are really great. And then the flooring. I've moved to pebble wash inside all of my bathrooms because I find everything else when it's wet is very challenging. Also, men, as they age, tend to urinate around instead of inside the toilet, and that can create a very slippery situation. Having said that, I wouldn't recommend having a direct conversation that says, hey, dad, you pee all over the place. I don't think that has a lot of dignity tied to it. I would find mats maybe that you can put around there that get swapped out and washed every day. Look, nobody said that this was super fun, right? But if that allows them to live safely, then those are the things that we do to make sure they're not only living safely, but living safely with as much dignity and confidence as possible. So I hope that's helpful.